Welcome to This Day Live, the Sunday talk show, where we discuss all things political, bringing you the top stories, locally, nationally, and from around the world. I'm Ruben Abati, and This Day Live begins now. I'd like to welcome today's panelist, YEMI ADAMOLEKUN, Executive Director in Office Enough, and Professor BOLA AKINTERINWA, Director General, Bolytag Center for International Diplomacy and Strategic Studies. Prof and YEMI, good to see you again this Sunday. Good to have you here, standing firm, even in the time of coronavirus. But let's begin with the latest situation report on the spread of coronavirus in Nigeria. On Saturday, the Nigeria Center for Disease Control confirmed 176 new cases. Now, the total tally of infected persons in the country rose from 5,445 to 5,621. The 176 new cases reported Saturday night were from 14 states, and the breakdown is as follows. Lagos, 95, Oyo, 31, the Federal Capital Territory, 11, Niger and Borno 8 each, Jigawa 6, Kaduna 4, Anambra 3, Edo, Rivers, Nasarawa, and Bauchi states recorded 2 cases each, while Benue and Zamfara had 1 each. A total of 1,472 cases have been discharged, while 176 deaths have been recorded in 34 states, including the Federal Capital Territory. The number of samples tested has also increased to a total of 32,942. However, according to the agency, the spike in the number of cases over the past few weeks points to a significant impact of community transmission. And here is the latest global picture of the pandemic. Well, I mean, we have, those graphics out there on the screen. And there have been quite a number of developments in the course of the week about the management. Now we're told that testing has increased up to 32,000 plus. We have also been told that the target of the government is to have up to 2 million in terms of testing by June. We don't know if we're at 32,000 right at this moment, whether we'll be able to get to 2 million. But the objective, of course, is that the more you test, the more you are able to track, trace the seroprevalence. In the course of the week, the Minister of Health also said that private health facilities are also being engaged to make sure that they develop the capacity to also help with the testing. So far, in terms of the league table, Kogi and Cross River states are yet to appear on that table. The governor of Kogi in particular is claiming that the federal government is playing games with COVID-19 testing. Cross River also has not reported any case. So that's why we keep having 34 states plus the FCT. In the course of the week also, the federal government took delivery of the COVID organics preventive cure, prophylaxis, from Madagascar. And the president of Guinea-Bissau personally visited President Buhari, whom he referred to as his father. We have also been told that in the course of the week, there were also issues with regular healthcare services. Immunization rate has gone down. Antenatal representation in health facilities has gone down. It's as if, people are not going to the hospitals again. And it was again the minister, Ihanere, Minister of Health, who disclosed this. Also in the course of the week, since we last met, we have also been told that certain persons who get cured or, treated for COVID-19 have been turning themselves into medical doctors and consultants and experts, even recommending self-medication to persons who have not yet been treated. And the authorities, particularly HEISE, the Director General of the NCDC, has had cause to say persons who go to facilities and who are treated and have been discharged should stop acting as scientists, giving advice to other people. And I don't know what you think about that. But even more importantly, in the course of the week, This-Day Dome, which was donated by Prince Nduka Obaigbena of the This-Day Media Group and the HEISE Media Group, was commissioned, was inaugurated. It's a 320-bed facility, treatment and isolation center, with a capacity to go up to about 500. And This-Day and Prince Obaigbena did that in collaboration with a number of other partners, Sahara Group, the African Finance Commission, the Central Bank of Nigeria, the Chinese Construction and Engineering Company, and a number of other groups, including 54 Gene, that is led by Dr. Abasi Enobong, who is going to be in charge of the mobile facility for COVID-19 testing at that facility. So, Prof, what do you think about these updates?
Well, I think we should be talking about a very welcome development. Let's begin with the donation of about 320-bed isolation center by Nduka Obaigbena. It's quite commendable. Trying to bring his, friends, acquaintances, all those things. I think if you even take a look at the dome itself, the structuring of the place, etc., it's quite befitting. And I think if citizens will come out and make this type of gesture to humanity, I think it's quite welcome. Now, when you take the issue of the organic herbs from Madagascar, I think it's equally welcome a development. Contrary to a school of thought which believes that, look, the government of Nigeria should not have anything to do with that type of offer of friendship, offer of goodwill. The issue is that even if the Nigerian Medical Association, the medical practitioners, the paramedical practitioners in Nigeria, if they do have the expertise already, the solution, nothing prevents you from learning from the experience of others so that you can have a sort of a cumulative knowledge on the matter. There is no, and there cannot be any limitation to knowledge acquisition. So I think that the Madagascar's offer should simply be taken, and like the president rightly pointed out, that look, we will want to subject the syrup, the drink, the herbs, to test here in Nigeria before administering it on Nigerians. I think that one is equally good a decision. In this case, the issue is that you have an African country coming up with an alternative solution for consideration. Why should we reject that? But there are two issues at the level of the offer by Madagascar. Now, the Madagascan minister, I think it's the foreign minister, they are trying to say that some people have been bribed, that the World Health Organization is trying to organize campaigns of calumny against, the findings of the government of Madagascar. And in this case, I find it very interesting when I take a critical look at this type of allegation. Yes, of course, it can be true. Why wouldn't it be true? Because the United States itself has laid allegations against the World Health Organization, which means that COVID-19 itself is increasingly becoming more difficult because it is being politicized. It's becoming complex. So you have the medical problem as one issue, but you have the politics as another. Now, when you look at the visit by the plenipotentiary from Guinea-Bissau who talks about Buhari being the father. I don't have any problem with that. The only thing I notice is that, look, generally, all those visitors to the presidency, people who have visited President Buhari in his office, President Buhari will be the only one with, without, you know, a face mask. All others will have. Now, the implication of that for a discerning diplomat, an accredited diplomat, if an ambassador comes, a minister comes, everybody wears the face mask, and you as Mr. President, the host, you are not wearing that one. You are implicitly suggesting to the world that, look, all those who are coming to visit you are likely carriers.
No, but on that note, I think the presidency has offered an explanation. I don't know, Prof, whether you are aware of that.
What is the explanation?
That persons who come to the villa, they take temperature checks, and it is assumed that, you know, they will not affect...
Well, that's not the explanation for not wearing a mask. He's saying something very different. You can temperature check someone who's wearing a mask. His point is that all the president's guests always wear masks.
Yes,
except for the
yes,
president.
I know what he's saying.
Yeah,
but I'm saying that the presidency has defended the president.
How does the temperature check have to do with
why a visiting president will be presumed a carrier of
and they observe physical distancing. That's another...
No, but I don't think it's presuming that he's carrying it. He's just, I would say that is that President Buhari or the people, his handlers, just don't think it's important to communicate that we are all in this together and everybody is masking. I don't think he's saying...
quite different.
I don't think he's saying that. I'm just saying...
I'm looking at the diplomatic implications. If I were to be an accredited diplomat to Nigeria, you subjected me to wearing face masks, all right, for reasons of...
but we don't know that they subjected him, though. It might be a choice.
Look, you see,
Prof, diplomacy
is not about that.
Prof, I plead with you to hold your thoughts on this question of President Buhari leading by example.
Yeah.
When we come back, you will summarize that,
yes,
and then we'll take YEMI's inputs. It's time now for a break here on This Day Live, the Sunday Talk Show. Don't go away. We'll be right back. Welcome back to This Day Live, the Sunday Talk Show here on the ARISE News Channel. Still with me in the studio, I have YEMI ADAMOLEKUN, Executive Director in Office Enough, and Professor BOLA AKINTERINWA, Director General, Bolytag Center for International Diplomacy and Strategic Studies. Well, Prof, you were arguing that President Buhari is not leading by example in terms of following the guideline that everyone should wear a mask in public places. And I was telling you that, you know, a presidential aide has said the presidential environment is a safe place, and all guests having been subjected to the regular safety checks, the president himself, being in a safe environment, does not need to wear a mask. And you are going to respond to that. I'd like you to do it in 30 seconds so that I can have your
All right, in 30 seconds. If, according to your submission, the environmental conditioning of the presidency is already safe and secure, then there is no need for any visiting diplomat or envoy, all right, putting it on.
No,
so
the argument of the presidency is that visiting dignitaries can leave droplets. So they are the ones who should wear the mask, and that the president doesn't need to wear the mask. He only needs to be protected by, from the guests, so that those guests don't leave droplets.
This is exactly your point.
The point I'm making, all right, and on which I still insist, is this. If in the comfort of my house, I saw visitors to the presidency, everybody wears the mask, except my own president. I am saying my president should also cultivate the culture of leading by example. Because at home, I say, why is it that others are putting this on and my own is not? So even if you have all the antibodies in you, why will you allow a visitor to also infect you under the pretext that you have already maintained social distancing? No.
Okay, Yemi, I would like to come to you now, and I would like you to comment on other aspects of what we have seen in the past week. Nigerians are expecting that the federal government will take a position afresh on the extension of the lockdown or the easing of the lockdown. Having been told that this will be in 3 phases of 2 weeks. The first 2 weeks would lapse tomorrow morning, I guess, And at the briefing yesterday, we were given an indication that it's not likely that the federal government will impose any further lockdown. But some of the states have been doing what they call Twitter poll. And Ogun State, on the basis of a Twitter poll, has extended for another week. However, in some other states, we've seen an easing of the lockdown in Ebonyi, in Adamawa, in Katsina, in Borno. You know, in some of these states, we've seen even religious bodies, mosques and churches in those states have been asked to reopen. What would you like to see? And then health workers have become very vulnerable. The National Association of Nurses and Midwives has reported that about 300, nurses are in isolation centers on quarantine, and that about 85 have tested positive. And in Borno, in Oyo, and in many other states, we've had cases of, health workers becoming even far more vulnerable than we have witnessed in Kano and Lagos. What do you say to all of this?
Well, there are a lot of issues. I think I'll start from where Prof left off. And even though I slightly initially disagreed with him in terms of the fact that the president of Guinea-Bissau might have chosen to, you now seem to say that it's required, that it's the president that we're saying is safe and everybody else might be droplets. But I think the principle of leading by example cannot be overemphasized. This is a president that doesn't speak to its nationals, that doesn't engage, that took a while for even him to speak to start off with. And then you say, as part of our guidelines for containing this virus, everybody should wear a mask in public places. And he has consistently refused to do that. So I think that, thank you, Prof, it's definitely worthy of note. Another bit that I think is quite concerning is your point about immunizations, antenatals, and hospital visits in general. What we have seen are that private hospitals are very reluctant to take in patients because, one, a lot of them don't have personal protective equipment, so they're afraid for themselves. And I think the point that you made about the Association of Nurses saying the ones in isolation, if we do not ensure that those who work in our hospitals are safe, both by citizens being honest about their symptoms and their history, and ensuring that they have the right equipment, we cannot be surprised that hospitals are closing their doors for citizens to just come and do basic stuff. And what then happens invariably is that not only do we have deaths from COVID-positive patients, we also have deaths from, what's it called? Implied, I don't know what the English word is, but people who invariably, unfortunately, die because they don't have access to medical care. And at the federal level and at the state level, I've not seen anything that seeks to address that. Lagos, for a period of time, we saw a flurry of hospitals that were having to be closed or shut down because people who were COVID-19 positive came in. But we then haven't seen a protocol for how we're ensuring that other citizens can get the help that they need. To your point that, yes, we're not getting a sense that there will be a lockdown and things will continue as normal. Ogun extended this by a week, though 3 days out of that week, people are free to move around. What we have consistently not seen, at least from where I sit, is any science, any data that's driving the decisions that the federal government and state government are making, especially in Lagos for me, and that's particularly disturbing because a lot of states are looking to Lagos for leadership. And I have not seen anything that speaks to this is what is governing what we're doing. We're talking about flattening the curve. Which curve? That's based on what data points? And that, for me, is quite disturbing. And that's why in some states, churches and mosques are open. Meanwhile, we do know that when people speak loudly or shout, the droplets are spread. We don't know the implications of people who are asymptomatic and show up in these places and what that might then cause. And I think, lastly, if you asked me another question, which I've forgotten, but the lack of data, I think maybe I'll park it on that. I think the lack of data in driving the decisions that we're making, we're underestimating it. As you said, the more tests we do, the more people that we know are COVID-19 positive. And you can seem fine, but if you are not, I mean, let's take the use, I think the use of mask is where I would land it. We're saying everybody should mask. Mr. President is not leading by example. And secondly, there are no guidelines. What constitutes a safe mask? Is it an Ankara mask? Is it one that's made out of cotton? Is it one that's made out of this? What are things that people who are making those masks need to be mindful of? We've seen footage of people who test masks as they try to buy them. We've seen masks who are being recycled. There was a thing on social media over the weekend, police arresting a man who was selling masks, but they themselves weren't wearing masks. So there's a lot of that going on, and it just makes you not just wonder, it speaks to the fact that we're not using data nor science in driving our decisions. Sorry, I want to say this lastly on Madagascar's organics. On a program that we hosted, we had the Minister of State for Health on Saturday, and he actually mentioned that we actually have to pay for it. That one, the organics are not free. But secondly, what I get from the Prime Minister to what you were saying was the fact that...
Which Prime Minister?
Of Madagascar.
President.
President, sorry.
Andre Rajolina.
Thank you very much. What he was trying to say was that we will not be dismissed. That if we're talking about possible cures for this thing, let this be part of the body of work that's been investigated, that is being tested, that is being looked at. So it's not just, oh, because it's from that country. And I think, WHO then sort of backtracked and has now said that, yes, they will receive it and look at it and test it. And I think that that's a positive. Yeah. But in Nigeria, Minister Mamora also said very clearly that NAFDAC has only accepted one sample that was tested, that they've only received one sample. And NAFDAC's role is even to ascertain that it's fit for human consumption. Then it needs to go to clinical trials for its efficacy. So for everybody that's talking about, oh, we have a cure, we have a this, we have a that, if you've not even bothered to go through the process, it's not to be taken seriously, because there is a science to this in what you are testing. And then lastly, sorry, in the process, I remembered all your statements. Lastly, to those who have just been discharged, who have turned themselves into scientists, there is no cure for COVID-19, as you've said. But it manifests with different symptoms, and it's those symptoms that are treated. So if your own variation of it is a fever, they'll try to bring your fever down. If you are coughing, they'll try to deal with your cough. So suddenly come out of that and say, oh, they only gave me malaria meds. Oh, you had the fever. So they tried to help your fever. That was why they gave you those drugs. So yeah, just to reiterate what the DG has said, that people who've gone through it are clear that there is no cure for it. But whatever symptoms you have will be treated. And that doesn't now constitute a cure or a treatment for COVID-19.
Well, on Madagascar, what the WHO has said is that what has been presented by Madagascar does not constitute a cure. But however, the WHO is interested in what alternative medicine can bring to the table, and that will be processed through the clinical cycle. Nigeria has also said that the samples that have been of COVID organics that have been received will also be put through the research cycle and considered fit or not for consumption in Nigeria. But globally, we've been seeing a lot of easing of the restrictions of the lockdown. Last weekend, Prime Minister Boris Johnson addressed the people of the United Kingdom, even if the guidelines that he has offered will apply only to England. We've seen the easing of the lockdown in Spain and in Italy and in some other parts of the world. But we'll see how all of that works out, whether there will be a second wave that could have greater effect on the prospects of the world or the economy. But here in Nigeria, you mentioned the isolation centers. I think the isolation centers, we've been getting a lot of complaints from isolation centers, from Gombe, from Bauchi, and even from Lagos. And I think that the authorities need to pay closer attention to how persons are treated at isolation centers so that we don't have too many protests by persons who are either in quarantine or persons who are in isolation centers. Let's take another topic. It's also related to how Nigeria is managing COVID-19. The federal government of Nigeria recently attributed the directive given to Nigerian missions abroad that prospective Nigerian evacuees should pay for their accommodation and feeding before departure or arrival in Nigeria. And this is due to constraints in terms of resources. Nigeria is unable to take care of the large number of willing returnees who want to return to the country, as it were. Minister of Foreign Affairs Geoffrey Onyema confirmed this on Friday during the daily briefing of the Presidential Task Force on COVID-19 in Abuja. One of the directives was issued by the Nigerian Embassy in Bangkok, Thailand, stressing that willing evacuees will have to pay 297,600 naira to cover for their accommodation, quarantine, isolation, and feeding. The statement, signed by the head of Chancery of the Nigerian Embassy in Bangkok, Nicholas Umobi, warned that the embassy has been instructed not to airlift any evacuee who fails to pay the stipulated, negotiated fee. Well, we take a short break now while Prof and YEMI, you reflect on that particular issue. When we return, the conversation will continue. It's still This Day Live, the Sunday talk show. Don't go away. We'll be right back. Welcome back to This Day Live, the Sunday talk show here on the ARISE News channel. Still with me in the studio, I have YEMI ADAMOLEKUN, Executive Director in Office of, and Professor BOLA AKINTERINWA, Director General, Bolytag Center for International Diplomacy and Strategic Studies. Now, YEMI, let me start with you this time around. Before we went on break, we were talking about the Nigerian government saying, look, over 4,000 Nigerians in different parts of the world, they want to return to the country. Now, if you must return, you must pay the money for your airfare, the money for your upkeep, either in the quarantine center or the isolation center or the treatment center. In Thailand, a memo went out to the Nigerians who expressed interest in returning to the country, and they've been given a bill of $297,000 plus each. Now, in India, the persons who want to return from India have also been given a bill, and many of them are saying, this is too much. We cannot pay. And the Nigerian government is saying, well, the Presidential Task Force decided that the first batch of persons who were brought from Dubai, the United Arab Emirates, they will feed them and accommodate them, but that the Nigerian government cannot sustain it because we do not have the resources. And the question many Nigerians are raising is that, why is this the case? Under the auspices of the CBN, the private sector, led by Aliko Dangote, contributed over 27 billion naira. The account that was opened by the Accountant General's office has over 723 million naira. Now, why don't you spend this money to take care of Nigerians who want to return? The ones that have returned are protesting that they are not well taken care of, particularly the ones that came from the United Arab Emirates. Others who are still abroad, in Canada, in India, in Thailand, are protesting that their country is not treating them well. Is the government justified to say we have no money? If you must come home, you take care of yourself. You pay your way, you take care of yourself when you return.
I mean, while I think the government has lacked accountability in terms of the monies that were received by the private sector, on this one, I actually am on the side of government. I think it's not just us. The UK and the US did exactly the same thing. The two countries evacuated their citizens, and they signed basically that they were going to pay whatever the cost of travel. I agree with the government of Nigeria that people who are coming back should be tested. I agree that they should be in quarantine for 2 weeks and tested afterwards before they're released. I understand the challenges of citizens who are saying that we can't afford it, but that's a separate conversation. So it's to now decide that, okay, do we want to make an appeal to CACOVID and say, as part of the donations of Nigerians or citizens, do we want to help offset some of the costs? People who can't, maybe they apply to a portal and explain why they can't, they traveled abroad, they've spent all their money, whatever the case might be. But I think by virtue of principle, there's nothing out of the ordinary in what the federal government is doing, and I quite support asking Nigerians to pay their way.
Prof, this is about citizen diplomacy.
Sorry, sir, but what I would then just add is that in that process, though, that the Nigerian government then needs to ensure that they are then treated properly. So what we saw with 6 hours on the tarmac or not getting food or whatever the complaints have been. Or
nobody attending to them.
Exactly. Now, those should not come up. So if I'm paying 300,000 naira as it were to come to Nigeria and be here for 2 weeks and cost of my feeding, let it be seamless. Let people meet me at the airport, let people take me to where I need to be, test me at the end of it, and let me go home.
Well, Prof, as I said earlier, this is about citizen diplomacy, which is a phrase that, the Foreign Affairs Ministry has been using a lot in the last decade or so. So do you think that the ministry is dropping the ball in this regard? Our stranded compatriots looking up to government and government disappointing them at every point?
Yeah, let me take off from where YEMI stopped. I agree with her at one level. we may not blame the federal government. Why I like the policy is for a completely different reason. I've always argued that the government of Nigeria is not on record to have any policy of protection of the Nigerian. It's not. We don't know the policy if it exists. Now, rather than talk about citizen diplomacy, we should talk about diplomatic protection under private international law. In this case, when Nigerians are stranded and there is need to protect them, it is either they might have been denied justice, fairness in their host countries. That's the only condition, the sovereignty of Nigeria, and the reason why you need to go out and seek protection of your citizens. But we are now talking about an environment of COVID-19, in which case citizens are stranded on foreign soil, and they now need to come back home. Because we have been told, you two said it, on the one hand, we say there is no cure. Again, it is argued that it's only the symptoms that have been addressed. So the carrier of COVID-19 is permanently carrying it for now. So they only try to mitigate, the painful effects of the virus. So if Nigerians now believe that we are told vaccine will not be ready until a year's time, we are told that this pandemic will be there for the next 2 years. That's the saying, that's the quotation, that's the reference to the World Health Organization. So why will Nigerians now be stranded for the next either 1 year or 2 years abroad? So it is by force majeure that they now want to return to their country to say, okay, if I'm going to be sick, if I'm going to die, if I'm going to have this problem, let it be in my home country. So from that perspective, the government of Nigeria should find a way of assisting its citizens. If America, the Washingtonian government will go to war because of only one citizen, they have it as policy, and they will not talk about the cost. So in this case, I believe that as much as the government may not be solvent enough to be able to provide sufficient money to bring its citizens back home, there is no denying the fact that they should look at the other side of the coin as well. You see, the first category of returnees, they were lucky. But we know that if the COVID and other private donors have been giving money, if an Unduka or Baigbena will donate a center dome for this purpose in order to save costs, now the money given, accruing to the government, should be allocated to more productive projects, especially health infrastructures. We shouldn't just collect money and be spending the money generally. No, the money should be applied to some permanent infrastructure in such a way that the bigger, the greater, the new viruses people are already speculating will not catch us unawares.
Okay, on that note, Prof, let's take another subject that seems to be related to the point you just made. The National Association of Nigerian Students on Friday said it will mobilize its members for a nationwide protest if the federal government of Nigeria continued its school feeding program during the closure of schools occasioned by the COVID-19 pandemic. On Friday, the federal government explained that it continued a national homegrown school feeding program because it was practically impossible to get back the funds that had already been paid to food vendors before the lockdown in states commenced. The president of the Nigerian Association of Nigerian Students, Danielson Akan, in a statement in Abuja, said the program was a misplaced priority and a discreet attempt to fleece the hard-earned resources of the country. Meanwhile, a member of the House of Representatives, Farah Dagogo, has described the federal government's plan to continue its national homegrown school feeding program as a scam, considering that schools have been closed due to the pandemic. Now, Yemi, I'll start with you in this regard. The Minister of Humanitarian Affairs, Disaster Management and Social Development has defended this, saying that, look, food vendors had been paid. And you will recall that this school feeding program was under the Social Investment Program. And that was defended. About a substantial amount of the first tranche of the Abacha loot that was repatriated was spent on this school feeding program. And now the federal government is saying, yes, schools may be shut down, but the vendors cannot account for the money, they cannot return the money, and they've been paid. So let us continue to feed students who are at home. And we've seen a number of photographs showing that the school feeding, homegrown school feeding program has commenced afresh. But many Nigerians are skeptical. They say, look, over 700 million is spent per day. Billions of money will be spent on which children? Children who are at home, children who are not going to school. So do you buy into this skepticism, particularly as expressed by Farah Dagogo, who is representing a major constituency from Rivers State in the House of Representatives, who says, look, this is a scam?
Well, two things. I'll speak quickly to Prof's point around evacuees. I just noted that 3 of those who came back from Dubai have tested positive. So while I hear you, and I do appreciate that, but I don't see it as a situation of, in a sense, war, where I'm trapped and I need my country to go to battle for me, is why they should be evacuated at the cost of government. On this, I think nature abhors a vacuum. The whole issue around accountability and transparency is what we have at play here. If the federal government was transparent around how much money has been disbursed, in what states this money has been disbursed to, how much what has been disbursed would last. You know when schools were shut down. You know how much you had disbursed. Therefore, you can calculate how many more weeks in that budget was unspent. So be very clear. In Kaduna, we had 2 weeks unspent, so they'll be feeding children for 2 weeks. In Rivers, we had 5 weeks left, whatever it is. So if people are able to track that this is what you are explaining, I don't think people would be as skeptical. But there's a gross mistrust of government which is at play here. And again, this goes back to the point I made earlier. Funds that we have, either from federal government or from private donations, there's still no clear place where Nigerians can understand how much was given, how it is being spent, and who is being held accountable. Transparency
and accountability and trust issues.
Exactly.
I get your point. But let's take another short break here on This Day Live, the Sunday Talk Show. Don't go away. We'll be right back shortly. Welcome back to This Day Live, the Sunday Talk Show, here on the HEISE News Channel. Still with me in the studio, I have YEMI ADAMOLEKUN, Executive Director, Enough is Enough, and Professor BOLA AKINTERINWA, Director General, Bolytag Center for International Diplomacy and Strategic Studies. Now, Prof, I'll come to you. YEMI had already raised the point with regard to the homegrown school feeding program about trust, about accountability, and transparency. But the position of the Minister of Humanitarian Affairs, Disaster Management and Social Development is that it will be cumbersome and unrealistic to ask the food vendors who had collected money to return the money to the federal government. Is that a way of saying, according to the Minister, that those food vendors cannot account for the money that they have collected? Don't forget that in this case, we're talking about over 13 billion naira. And many Nigerians feel that, look, by carrying out school feeding program that nobody can track, they're just trying to cover up and justify the spending.
I will simply say that it is most unfortunate. Nigeria is gradually moving from institutional corruption to scientific corruption. Now,
whatever that is.
Scientific corruption is to find arguments to rationalize. If you had paid money to food vendors, all right, it's for a period, either 6 months, 1 year, etc. are you suggesting to me that the money meant to be incurred in the next 6 months had been spent? No, please. For God's sake, in this particular matter, I cannot imagine why it is difficult for them to suspend the feeding program until resumption. The money is there. Agreement was done, signed. So why is it difficult for them?
The children are still hungry.
So that's one point. The second point I want to quickly make is this. Why should the federal government be engaged in a school feeding program? Something meant for local government councils. So please.
Very valid point. But they are now. Please. So until then, they're
an abuse of federalism, an abuse of Nigeria's diversity.
It's more than abuse.
And an over-centralization of what should be a decentralized process. Yes,
indeed.
Okay, let's take another topic that Nigerians have been concerned about in the course of the week. On Wednesday, Professor Ibrahim Agbola Gambari was officially unveiled as the new Chief of Staff to President Muhammadu Buhari. The Secretary to the Federal Government of the Federation, Boss Mustafa, made the announcement at the commencement of the Federal Executive Council meeting. Gambari, who is 75, is currently the Special Advisor on the International Compact with Iraq and other issues for the Secretary General of the United Nations. He was also the Minister of External Affairs for Nigeria between 1984 and 85, before he became the chairperson of the African Union Commission as Joint African Union United Nations Special Representative for Darfur in January 2010. So now Professor Gambari is Chief of Staff. Now, Prof, you were Director General of the Nigerian Institute of International Affairs at some point, and he too held that position before he was appointed Minister of External Affairs. And, you know, it's your field of diplomacy and international relations. What kind of man is he? Do you think that President Buhari has made a good decision, making him his Chief of Staff? Or do you think he's too old for that assignment? Do you think it's a demotion for him, as some people advocate?
Well, there are many ways of looking at the question. But in terms of his personality, we need to differentiate between his official character as distinct from his personal, his private character. The many accusations, allegations, criticisms levied against him at the official level, he may be right. Why? There's no way anybody can fault Ibrahim Gambari at that level. Simply because when you are named an ambassador, it is clearly stated in the letters of credence. Letters of credence are of two types. The one accrediting you to the new country, and the other letter, the one withdrawing the accreditation to the incumbent ambassador coming back home. So they call them letters of credence. Now, in every letter of credence, it is clearly stated by the sending president accrediting you that this is my nominee. Look at the word, mine. My nominee. I have trust in him. So relate with him, deal with him on my behalf. On my behalf. So when people say someone is ambassador of Nigeria all along, yes, grosso modo, generally speaking, you can say Nigeria, since the president himself is standing in representing the whole people of Nigeria. That is the sense from which people consider an ambassador, ambassador of Ghana, High Commissioner of Ghana, and so on and so forth. So, in this case, any ambassador is supposed to take instruction from the sending president. So, whatever he might have done at that particular level, then he is right.
Either with regard to Kensarowiwa or Abacha,
so,
or June 12. That's what you are saying, Prof.
Yes, at the governmental level. Now, from the private character level, his own attitudinal disposition to life, it may be different. People have criticized him, and I listened to Professor George Obiozo on this morning show saying that, look, Gambari is not a perfect man. He can be expected to fault one way or the other. Others have given different arguments. My position on this is this. You see, Professor Gambari, as a private person, I would say, will need to take a cautionary look at how he is going to function as Chief of Staff. Because people look at the implications. They look at the implications of whatever he's going to do. His private attitude has been friendly to some. It has been unfriendly to some others. So in this case, I would just simply say that his private attitude, to a great extent, has been accommodating. And one will need to differentiate between his official attitudes and private attitudes. I will just submit that, for instance, in the case of Ambassador Dakpofafura, his case has been trending all along. If, for instance, Professor Gambari had written a secret report on him, all right, either from official capacity or private capacity, that one is uncalled for. Is uncalled for. In this case...
Well, it's difficult to take sides. We haven't not heard from Professor Gambari himself. No. And I do not think that he needs to engage in any altercation with Dr. Fafura.
He's just stating his opinion that if he did it, he doesn't think it's called for.
I read the book. Please, I was DG. We published the book. Even when I saw reactions, people coming out to say, Dr. Fafura didn't get the facts right. Please, there are many versions of the truth. You cannot know the truth more than the person who is personally engaged there. Okay,
Prof. On that note, let me take YEMI's inputs. What are your expectations now that we have a new Chief of Staff after that office had been heavily controversialized?
I think I'll go with Simon Kolawale's article, the title of his article at the back page of this day today. Welcome to Fire, Professor Gambari. I think there's a lot about him because he's had a very public life compared to his predecessor. So there's a lot to your points that people can insinuate and can reference to based on his track record. But there are two things that I would say. One, as an intellectual and an academic, I think no one faults his clout credentials in that regard. And secondly, as a diplomat, I think his capacity to have navigated the world of the UN and diplomatic circles for this many years, people speak highly of his diplomatic skills. But I would say that in the context of Nigeria, both his intellectual prowess and his diplomatic skills will now be put to the test as he tries to navigate the delicate balance of being a chief of staff who is behind the scenes compared to his predecessor that everybody technically saw in action, so to speak. But I think it's a challenging time to become chief of staff, and I wish him all the best.
And it's a tough job, which will require a lot of intellectual and physical skills.
Yes.
Well, thank you very much, YEMI. Thank you, Prof. I look forward to seeing you next Sunday. You've been watching This Day Live, the Sunday talk show here on Arise News. I'm Ruben Abati. For my entire team here in Lagos, it's bye for now, and thank you very much for watching. See you next Sunday.